My name is Leslie-Anne van Beek. I work in the Food Security Program at ECDPM, where we recently published a discussion paper focusing on regional food security and water in the Southern African Development Community. I recently spoke via Skype to Professor Mike Muller from the South African National Planning Commission to get a practitioner's view on improving transboundary cooperation for agricultural water management in SADC, and particularly what needs to happen concretely at a regional level in order to realize cross-sectoral linkages across water, agriculture and trade sectors. We also spoke to him ahead of the Africa Water Week taking place in Dakar at the end of May to also get a sense of what would be key issues for discussion at that platform.
Let me start by saying I'm really pleased that ECDPM is doing this work on the regional food and water issues. And I think that the report correctly identifies trade as the obvious linkage. Water can produce food, but unless food can be traded, the amounts that's produced in one area is probably unlikely to meet the needs of other areas. So I think the focus is right. I think the key question that we have to ask is whether the SADC framework is actually the best way through which to address the opportunity that the distribution of water and land offers to get the region working together better. It could be that SADC could work differently. It could be that we have different mechanisms, but on the experience to date, it is not obvious that through current SADC mechanisms, we will see an increase in trade and an improvement in regional food and water security as a result.
And in your view, concretely, what needs to happen at the regional level, at the SADC level, in order to realize improved links across these sectors? And what would you say are key things or key actions for the implementation of the RAP in order to move beyond and to move into these kind of linkages?
You know, I think again that the report is very useful in saying that it's important to understand the political economy that's driving this particular issue. But political economies tend to work at a national level. That's the level of sovereign government. That's the level at which rules are decided and which programs are agreed to or not agreed to. And if we don't understand what's driving those decisions at national level and what the interests are and the interplay between them is, we're not going to make too much progress. So for me, the key issue is to understand what are the opportunities, what are the interests at national level, and how do those work together. Just as an example, you know, there are parts of the region where there's an awful lot of people scrabbling for an income, desperate for an income, who might be able to produce food for the region. They're not linked particularly well with transport, but there's certainly an interest. There are other countries in the region which have huge land resources, not nearly as many people. They've got the transport resources. Now, what's the incentive for them to move in this direction? There's commercial interests. A lot of the food production in SADC is arguably better done. So the agricultural sort of economists will argue that a lot of the food production is better done at an intensive commercial level, large-scale level. That's not very good for people. It's not very good for livelihoods, and therefore it's unlikely to attract the same kind of political support. Now, all of those issues have got to be brought out and surfaced, and I think that has to be done at national level before you can have really good dialogues at a regional level. And I don't think we've done enough of that. That's why I very particularly didn't mention the names of the countries involved, because actually they haven't really even featured in the discussion to date. And I think that's a mistake. If we don't point fingers and say, you've got the land and the transport, but you're not producing, you've got the people, but you're not able to produce, how do we work together? Until we have that kind of discussion, we're not going to make progress.
And in terms of an opportunity, an up-and-coming opportunity for this type of discussion, with particular reference to the Africa Water Week scheduled for the end of May in Dakar, would you say that there are opportunities at this platform where you will also attend to cover these type of issues of a transboundary nature and within that discussion to discuss these key linkages across these different sectors?
I think that, as always with these sectoral events, one tends to be talking to the same people about the same issues and not necessarily building linkages. Let's see where the Water Week manages to get more of the agriculture, trade, finance, and other people together. Sadly, I think that water is not the major constraint here. There's reasonably good cooperation in water across the region, but water isn't really a particular constraint except in very specific circumstances. What I think the water people should be talking about, and I hope we have an opportunity, I certainly have a slot and I will be doing that, will be to talk about the opportunities offered by water and the issues that water people, whether it's in government or in other areas, the academics and the scientists, what are the issues that they should be raising with counterparts in agriculture, in trade, in development planning, in finance? For me, that's the key issue. Can we explain to the wider public what are the opportunities that water offers, for instance, in terms of food security, in terms of climate resilience, in terms of promoting economic activity, which will lift the whole region up. If the more we produce, the more there is to go around, and everyone will benefit. But at the moment, I don't think we are yet looking at agriculture as an instrument for growth, which water can contribute to in many ways. But unfortunately, water isn't the bottleneck. It is the areas of trade and agriculture that are the main constraint, in my view. So one last issue, yes. One of the things that hasn't been addressed adequately is the trade-off between the interests of commercial large-scale farmers and household livelihoods and food security. And I think that must be put very firmly on the agenda. I don't see it enough. And that is probably far more important than the water issues.